Is motu proprio spiritus domini, changing church law permitting women to exercise the lay ministries of lector and acolyte. For more news from a Catholic perspective, visit EWTNnews.com. Women of Grace with Johnnette Williams starts now.
This is Women of Grace Live, discussing issues important to your life and faith. Spiritual insight, practical wisdom. Join us as we transform the world one woman at a time. Women of Grace, for such a time as this. Now, here's your host, Johnnette Williams.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to Women of Grace Live. I am Johnnette Williams, absolutely delighted and pleased to be with you today. We love to spend this time with you Monday through Friday as we discuss issues of importance to your life and to your faith. Always inviting you to give us a call here. We enjoy having that holy dialogue with you. We certainly do. Can't have it if you don't call. Let me give you a number to use. It's toll free for you right here in North America. It's 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Well, I have been away from you for a couple of days here, and the reason is because I had a really bad cold. Not COVID, was tested, everything negative, praise be to God for all of that. But I had a really bad cold, and I had almost no voice at one point, and I was coughing everywhere. So we have not been together for a little while, and I'm very eager to catch up with you on what's going on in your life and share with you a little bit about what's going on in my life, and we can kick it off that way. Again, that toll-free number is 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Ryan Penny on the phones for you today. Also available to you is EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Go on out there, use the chat feature. Jeff Burson, who's our producer and social media manager, will get all of your questions and comments, insights, inspirations, words of encouragement up on the board, and we'll be able to have that holy conversation today. I've been reading a book, and I actually purchased this book at the Shrine in Hanceville, the Shrine of the Blessed Sacrament, and I was surprised to find it there. I don't really know why, but I was shocked. It's the letters of Flannery O'Connor. It's called The Habit of Being. It was selected and edited by Sally Fitzgerald, who was a friend of Flannery O'Connor's. This was published in 1979. You can see those of you out there on Facebook and YouTube, you can see it's a very thick book. And making my way through her life, or at least the latter part of her life, that portion of time when she really actually began to emerge as a very important writer, American literature gem she is. She's very well known, practiced what's called Southern Gothic or the Southern Grotesque, a regional writer. She always includes in her themes, listen to that language. The themes of her works primarily are themes of redemption. And her Catholic faith figured very, very tremendously into all of her stories. And what is interesting for me to read is one who studied literature is, seeing and observing what she says about herself in terms of her writing and the way in which she went through that process of it and how deliberately her stories are riveted on themes that are important to our Catholic faith and our Catholic life. And she also tells very interesting tidbits of what's going on in the world. And these are collected, as I said, by one of her friends who received a lot of these letters. It was Sally and Robert Fitzgerald. And there's also a lot of other individuals that she writes to throughout the course of this book. But I wanted to just draw your attention to a particular section in here that she writes about when she made a trip to Europe, one she really wasn't interested in making, but her mother really wanted to go, so she went. At this point in her life, she's been diagnosed with lupus. Lupus, of course, in the time in which she had it, the 50s and the 60s, medicines were emerging to help control the disease, though the disease itself is not curable. Her own father had suffered from this disease. She had also developed a bone ailment in her leg, and at this time she's on crutches. She's using aluminum crutches. So it would be a very difficult pilgrimage for her to make, but she made it nonetheless. And today, being the Feast of the Chair of Peter, I thought I would just share this little paragraph with you from these letters about when she met Pope Pius XII. And this is what she writes, and she's writing this on May 5th of 1958. She says, "Yesterday in Rome, we went to St. Peter's for the general audience. The Archbishop arranged things so that we were on the front row. When it was over, the Pope came down, shook our hands, and the Archbishop asked him to give me a special blessing on account of the crutches, which he did. There is a wonderful radiance and liveliness about the old man. He fairly springs up and down the little steps to his chair. Whatever the special super aliveness that holiness is, it is very apparent to him." Now, I just read this paragraph, I don't know, maybe last night or the night before, and I marked it in the book as being somewhat special. And today, as I was doing the office, actually the morning prayer, and reading the readings from the Office of Readings, I was thinking to myself about our Holy Fathers. And I remembered this particular paragraph from this book, The Habit of Being. And I started to think about all of the Holy Fathers that have been in the pontificate during my lifespan. And I could relate to this particular year because I was alive in 1958. And I knew that our Holy Father was Pope Pius XII. And so I began thinking about that. And Pope Pius XII was the first Holy Father of my life. Okay, he came into his pontificate just prior to the beginning of the Second World War, and he was there until he passed on October the 9th in 1959. And then after he passed away, it was John the 23rd who was elected to replace him. And then when John the 23rd passed away, it was Pope Paul VI that replaced him. And then after Pope Paul VI, it was Pope John Paul I, who was our Holy Father for only 30 days. And then it was Pope John Paul II, who I believe has the longest number of years as Holy Father. And then, of course, following Pope John Paul II, we had Pope Benedict XVI. And then following Pope Benedict XVI, we now have Pope Francis. So I was thinking to myself about this quality that she mentioned in Pius XII, this super aliveness that is holiness, and how it was so apparent in him. And it made me remember when I was in the Vatican back in 1999 with my late husband, and we did not have a private audience with the Holy Father. So many have, and it was a great privilege and blessing to be able to have that particular, privilege to meet John Paul II or any Holy Father, but that was not to be mine. We did, however, go to the general audience, and I can remember that as his Pope Mobile came into the Vatican Square there, the Piazza, that you immediately knew when that Pope Mobile was coming for two reasons. One, the crowd began to cheer. But two, you felt it. You felt it. You felt the electricity. You felt the zeal. You felt the holiness of that man. And as he rode past us, I can remember just jumping up on my chair in one leap. It was crazy. I just leapt up on my chair. I've never done that before. I had never done that before. I've never done it since. And I began shouting, "Papa, I'm here. I'm here. Hello, Papa, I'm here." And I was just so taken out of myself because I knew that this was a decisive moment for me, that I was encountering holiness. So I could relate to that in Flannery O'Connor's letters here. I know what that feeling is like. And I thought that today, on the Feast of the Chair of Peter, we could talk about the Holy Fathers of our lives and what they meant to us, what they mean to us, and what it is about them that has so blessed us. So phone lines are open, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
The words of Blessed Carlo Acutis.
Our soul is like a hot air balloon. If by chance there's a mortal sin, the soul falls to the ground. Confession is like the fire underneath the balloon, enabling the soul to rise again. That's why it's important to go to confession often.
The power of prayer simply means that words have an effect. For example, when a couple says, "I do," it literally changes two people to becoming one in marriage. When you say, "I love you," it changes us and it gives us value. The power of prayer is in the words and in the sentiment, but it's also in the fact that God, who is omnipotent, all-powerful, answers our prayers.
The Reason for Our Hope with Father Larry Richards.
Do you know Christ? Do you know him intimately? Like you know your wife, like you know your best friend, like you know your children. And if the answer in your heart of hearts is no, I haven't a clue, then you haven't even begun yet to live the purpose of your life. And that's what needs to start happening. You gotta deal with that question. It's the most important question of your life. And again, it's gonna take you time. You know, how do you fall in love with anybody? Those of you who are married, you didn't get married to your wife by meeting her once and giving her 45 minutes to an hour once a week. You spent time with her. You got to know her. So the same thing has to happen with God. You gotta ask that question, and it's gonna take you time, but you gotta do it. You gotta answer that question. My thing is always seek truth, because truth will always lead you to God.
EWTN is everywhere. Follow EWTN Radio on Instagram. Go to the Instagram app and search EWTN Radio.
Encouraging women in their gift of authentic femininity. Here's more Women of Grace with Johnnette Williams.
Welcome back, everybody. It's great to be with you today. Let me give you the number that you can use to give us a call here. It's toll-free for you in North America. It's 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Also available for you out there at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Inviting you to use the chat feature to register your question, comment, insight, inspiration, or word of encouragement. And Jeff Burson, who is our social media manager as well as being our producer, will retrieve it and get it up. Be sure to give a howdy hey to Ryan Penny when you call in. And if you're a first-time caller, I'm encouraging you to let us know so we can ring our welcome bell for you. We love to do that. First-time caller or first-time submitter. So today is the Feast of the Chair of Peter. And so I was sharing with you prior to the break that I thought it might be nice for us to, pay some sort of tribute to the Holy Fathers that have populated our lives, and to share just a story or two about which Holy Father has meant the most to you and why. My guess is that some of you have been to Rome, maybe many of you have been to Rome, and maybe even a few of you had the opportunity to have a special audience with the Holy Father and or have been part of his general audience. I shared a story with you about my own experience of that back in 1999. And I also shared with you a quote, I guess you'd call it a quote from a book that I'm reading right now that is a compilation of the letters of American writer Flannery O'Connor, and recounting her meeting with Pope Pius XII. And it was just a quick meeting. She was there in the front row at a general audience, and the Archbishop that she was with, it was Archbishop O'Hara. She was from Georgia, outside of Atlanta in Milledgeville, and he asked the Holy Father to come and bless her because she was on crutches, and she was also suffering from a disease that would eventually take her life, and that was lupus. And she talks about the supernatural aliveness that is holiness, and how it radiated from Pope Pius XII. And I was sharing with you my own experience of perceiving that in 1999 when I was at a general audience with Pope John Paul II, and when he came in to the piazza in his Pope mobile, there was an electricity. There was an obvious sense of something beyond time and space that emanated from him. And it was such a blessed moment for me. So we look forward to hearing from you. How have you been blessed by a Holy Father? And or what was your encounter with the Holy Father in your lifetime? We have Maggie with us. She's in Fort Wayne, Indiana. She is with us via Alexa today. Good morning, Maggie. How are you?
Good morning. Fine, thank you. And yourself?
Very well. Thank you for asking. Much better now.
Good. Glad to hear. I just wanted to convey my experience. In 1999 as well, we went to Rome with two of our older children, and we attended an audience with the Pope. And Johnnette, I don't remember, but something may have occurred that now the audience would be just inside versus outside. I remember that was sort of something that was a change. So it was indoors, and it wasn't weather related. I just can't recall, what was happening at that time.
Right.
But so when we went into this audience, there was a lot of, hustle and bustle and a lot of anticipation, a lot of excitement. But when the Pope came into the building, into the space, there were a lot of tears, but there was a lot of crying, and it was very, very, very moving. And we had sort of made the journey because we had loved John Paul II's teachings, and, we just were really excited. It was a Jubilee year, obviously. But I looked down, and so everyone around us was, really crying with this, this beautiful emotion about being in his presence and being overwhelmed with it. And I looked down, and my two older children, who were just 6 and 8, were crying. And it was just the most beautiful, it just was the most beautiful experience of a lifetime to experience that ourselves, but then to, that our little ones were having the same impact. So surely, our Lord was present. It was just amazing.
What a beautiful story, Maggie. And this is it, isn't it? I mean, when you're in the presence of holiness, you know it. There's something that's communicated there. There have been a few people in my life that I know when I knew them were saints in the making, and now, whether they are canonized or not, I do believe that they are beholding the beatific vision. And you just had that sense of the power of God in them and the presence of God in them. And it is moving. It touches the human heart on a very deep level. And children, I think, because of their innocence, are very much aware of these things more quickly than we, who are jaded by the situations and circumstances and sin of life, right? And they get it. They get it instantly. And do they still remember that occasion?
Yes. Yes.
Made a deep impression on them.
Too. It did. It very much so did. And of the two, I think my daughter can probably articulate it better. But there is just like an affinity towards, knowing John Paul II, or a desire to, they're young adults, so they're relatively young still. But I would say yes, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, my children, my two daughters, shared with me that the only Holy Father that they ever really knew throughout most of their life was John Paul II, right? And of course, he spanned, 25 years, right, in the pontificate. So they said it's different for them to have a different Holy Father, because he was with us for such a long time. And what an incredible body of work. I mean, he certainly, I think, will become Pope John Paul the Great. We will know him that way, just because of the tremendous body of work, deep insights that he left us, like with the theology of the body and everything. Well, I thank you so very much for sharing with us today, Maggie.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. And we invite you to give us a call too, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. I'll tell you another Holy Father I think that made a great impact on me was Pope Paul VI. What a courageous man. He stood up in the face of all that was being thrown at him at a certain point in time because of his encyclical Humanae Vitae. And he was denounced by many of his own. He was denounced by many theologians. There were many within the church that disagreed with his statement on this. And yet he was certain that he was in the right. He was certain that he knew what he was saying. And we've come to see, haven't we, that his beautiful encyclical letter, Humanae Vitae, is not just great insight and great instruction, but it's also very prophetic, because everything that he said would happen if contraception became the way of the world, everything he said that would happen has happened. And so the birth control pill, while it was being lauded and praised for being a great breakthrough for the sake of women, has actually caused more difficulties, struggles for women than I think any single one thing. not only in a physical way, but in a spiritual way, an emotional way, and a psychological way. So he was very, very prophetic. And there's a quote in here, I don't know if I can find it quickly or not, that Flannery O'Connor makes with regard to birth control. And she's writing this even prior to that time. This is the 27th of June in 1959. And, so this was right on the cusp of what was happening in science. But she was a very alert woman. And she says this is really something. So, hold on to your seats for a minute here. She writes, the church, and she's writing this to a friend of hers, the church's stand on birth control is the most absolutely spiritual of all her stands. And with all of us being materialists at heart, there is little wonder that it causes unease. I wish various fathers, and here she means priests, I wish various fathers would quit trying to defend it by saying that the world can support 40 billion. I will rejoice in the day when they say, this is right, whether we all rot on top of each other or not, dear children, as we certainly may, either practice restraint or be prepared for crowding. She was not a woman who minced words. And, we might say, well, gee, that's rather crass. Flannery O'Connor didn't care. She was just right out there with what she was thinking. And as I shared with you earlier, the themes in her work are always about redemption of a soul. There's always a Christ figure in her works, but it's not overdone or overstated. It's subtle. It's very subtle. She was a subtle writer, but it comes out in the storyline. It comes out, as I say, in the characterization of those who populate her stories. It can be riveting. It's a type of Southern regional writing that is called Southern Grotesque or Southern Gothic. It goes by both of those names. But she was a straight-up Catholic in every sense of the word, and she was not one who was unable to defend her faith. She was not schooled in theology. She was not schooled in apologetics. She didn't believe apologetics were necessary. She believed the truth spoke for itself, and if you spoke the truth, people would grab it. People would lay hold of it. And she was very forthright in what she had to say, whether she was writing to an atheist or writing to a Protestant or writing to a Catholic or, writing to an agnostic. She really didn't much care. She just explained things, and she explained things very well, and she explained things in vernacular that the people could understand. Out there in YouTube land is Dave. He says, I had 2 encounters with Pope Benedict the 16th papal mass at Washington, D.C. in 2008, which was absolutely amazing. And later in 2008 with a papal audience outside St. Peter's Basilica. Also amazing, exciting. Yeah, a great gift that we have in the pontificate, and a great way of being able to discern truth from falsehood, that which is of God and that which is not. And it's interesting because if you go and you read the gospel for today, it's that moment in Caesarea Philippi, where Jesus asks Peter, who do you say that I am? And he tells him that he is the Son of God. And he says, no man told you this. You are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against her. And it's interesting to note that we can trace the pontificate all the way back to that encounter between Jesus and Peter. All the way back. Every Holy Father has his genesis right there. A beautiful gift that we have. And Jesus says the gates of hell will not prevail against his church. It doesn't mean that the gates of hell will not try. And it certainly, I think, encourages us to realize that the gates of hell are trying. And the gates of hell will continue to try. In every day and age, they have tried. But here we are, all of these years later, and the church still stands. In spite of the misery of the people who have occupied it, in spite of their sinfulness, oftentimes right within the pontificate itself, oftentimes within the magisterium of the church, oftentimes within the priesthood. So what we experience today is nothing that hasn't been experienced before, and that isn't cause for thinking that the church has got to change. The church doesn't have to change. The church is the voice of Jesus Christ, alive among us today through his mystical body, which is the church. Flannery writes something about that as well. And she writes this to a friend, a Dr. Spivey, who was a teacher at, I think it was Western Georgia College, which was right in the town where she grew up. She's talking about the church. She says, it is not logical to the Catholic to believe that Christ teaches through many visible forms, all teaching contrary to doctrine. And here she's talking about the various Protestant denominations. She said, it is not logical to the Catholic to believe that Christ teaches through many visible forms, all teaching contrary doctrine. You speak of the well-known facts of Christ's life, but these facts are hotly contested. The virgin birth, the resurrection, the very divinity of Christ. For us, the one visible church pronounces on these matters infallibly, and we receive her doctrine whether subjectively it fits in with our surmises or not. We believe that Christ left the church to speak for him, that it speaks with his voice, he the head, and we the members. She continues, if Christ actually teaches through many forms, then for 15 centuries, he taught that the Eucharist was his actual body and blood. And thereafter, he taught part of his people that it was only a symbol. She's pointing out the illogical realities of these things. The Catholic can't live with this kind of contradiction. I have seen it put that the Catholic is more interested in truth and the Protestant in goodness, but I don't think too much of the formula, except that it suggests a partial truth. She continues, last paragraph I'll read. The Catholic finds it easier to understand the atheist than the Protestant, but easier to love the Protestant than the atheist. The fact is, though, now the fundamentalist Protestants, as far as doctrine goes, are closer to their traditional enemy, the Church of Rome, than they are to the advanced elements in Protestantism. That's an interesting statement. You can know where I stand, what I believe, because I am a practicing Catholic, but I can't know what you believe unless I ask you. You are right that enjoy is not exactly the right word for our talking about religion. As far as I know, it hurts like nothing else. We are at least together in the pain we share in this terrible division. It's the Catholic Church who calls you separated brethren, she who feels the awful loss. Really incredible words stated by a tremendous literary writer, one who has been extolled by Protestant and Catholic and Jew and atheists alike. That's Flannery O'Connor. We have Lois with us. She's in Austin, Texas today. Guadalupe Radio is the way she's listening to us. Hi, Lois. How are you?
I am thought out. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm happy to have you with us.
Thanks for taking my call.
You're welcome.
So I was blessed. I'm going to continue with the Pope stories.
Mm-hmm.
The pilgrimage that had been planned a year ahead of time, and out of New York, and I live in Texas, and I had just mentioned casually to somebody, if somebody cancels, just let me know. And so 6 months went by, and 3 weeks before the pilgrim was supposed to leave, a cancellation came through, and they asked me if I wanted to go, and I'm like, sure, why not? So that was in March of 2013. And I happened to be there to watch the smoke come out every day, and then myself and 300 million other of my closest friends were in the square when Pope Francis walked out.
Isn't that amazing?
And then one side note is I went there, and I didn't tell a lot of people, hardly. In fact, I don't even know if I told my boss, because I continued to work because of the time difference. It kind of worked out pretty well. I'd work at night and play during the day. But NBC interviewed me, and it wasn't TV, so I was thinking nobody's going to see it. Well, it ended up on the internet, and I'm getting all these texts saying, or emails saying, we know where you are.
How amazing, Lois. My goodness. You never know the surprises God has in mind for us, and I am so happy that you heeded that little prompting. I'm going to call it a prompting of the Holy Spirit for you to go and to place that call and say you'll take a cancellation. Thank you for sharing that beautiful story with us, and friends, we invite you to do the same. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Coming right back to you after the break. Stay with us.
Missing Catholic radio in your area? Heed God's call to get involved and start a Catholic radio station. Contact Jack Williams, 205-795-5756, or email jwilliams@ewtn.com.
Women of Grace is excited to be offering its first ever book study. Join me, Sue Brinkman, as we dive into the book, Overcoming the Evil Within, the Reality of Sin and the Transforming Power of God's Grace and Mercy by Father Wade Menezes. We'll unpack this book together online in 6 weekly sessions beginning February 22nd. So sign up at womenofgrace.com. Registration includes the book. Reading assignments and study questions will be provided every week. We're looking forward to spending this time with you.
This is Life Issues with Brad Mattis, president of Life Issues Institute.
A new study reveals glaring deficiencies in the way complications are being reported after women undergo a chemical abortion pill procedure. Over 30 board-certified physicians spent 3 years analyzing the data on complications and deaths. The study, published in Issues in Law and Medicine, found 60% of women experiencing complications went to local emergency rooms instead of the abortion facilities, which hugely affects accurate reporting. These findings come at a time the abortion industry is seeking telemedicine and mail-order access to the dangerous abortion pill, which would devastate accurate reporting. The FDA reporting system already significantly underestimates complications and deaths. We need more guidelines, not fewer, to protect women.
Like us on Facebook at Life Issues and stay informed, more informed than you've ever been.
Tomorrow on More to Life, fighting the good fight.
Conflict in your life or relationships burning you out will help you win the battle.
That's tomorrow on More to Life. Now back to Women of Grace.
Transforming the world one woman at a time. Let's return to Women of Grace with Johnnette Williams.
Well, welcome back, everybody. We're happy you're with us today, and I'm inviting you to give us a call. We're looking forward to having some holy conversation with you. Phone lines are open. We'll talk about anything you want to talk about, but I did throw a little question out there for you, and I'm curious because today, of course, we're celebrating the Feast of the Chair of Peter, and I was wondering which Holy Father made the deepest impression on you and why? Or did you have a special moment when you were in the presence of a Holy Father? Share that with us today, 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Ryan Penny on the phones. Be sure to let him know if you're a first-time caller, because if you are, we'll ring our welcome bell and invite you to join us again a second time, some other time. But we want to hear what you have to say today. 833-288-EWTN. Also available to you out there at EWTN's YouTube channel and Facebook page, EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page, that is. You can leave your question or comment right there in the chat feature, and our producer and social media manager, Jeff Burson, will grab it and put it up here. Two Feathers left a message for us out there on YouTube. Not sure if this counts, but at 4 years old, my grandmother gave me a rosary she had blessed by John Paul II during her pilgrimage, along with a small vial of water from the Jordan River. I still have the rosary. How beautiful. And you know, Two Feathers, that should be very, very special to you, because it's a sacramental because of the blessing, but it's kind of special, special sacramental, because it was blessed by a saint. And I would treasure that, you know, I would really, really treasure that and pass it on down the line through your family, right? So that this very special blessing can play forward. That's one of the great things that we have, you know, in our faith, these devotional practices and these beautiful sacramentals that protect us and also help us to inch our way to the Lord. It isn't so much that the item itself has some supernatural effect. It isn't about that, but it's the blessing that's on that particular item, whether it's a medal or a rosary, you know, a prayer book that you've had blessed, you know, something like that, you know, a Bible. It's the blessing that's on that that carries forward and has this opportunity for you to enter more deeply into the mysteries of the Trinitarian life. And we should note that when we're holding something that's been blessed, you know, that this is something that we treat with reverence and respect. It isn't something that we just toss around. It's something that we treat with reverence and respect. And this is why, even after the item breaks, or you know, we you know, no longer are using it for one reason or another, you know, we put it in a special place. And what we really should do is we should bury it we bury it. So that's one of the ways people say, well, you know, I've got all of these broken rosaries, or, you know, one of my relatives died and I have a whole collection of medals that are, you know, old and antiquated and you can't even tell who the saint is anymore and I don't know what to do with them. You gather them all together and you bury them. That shows respect. It shows a deep respect for the item and for the blessing that's on that item. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. Inviting you to join us here today. The phone lines are lighting up, and as soon as we get these calls screened, we're going to get to them. We want you to count among them. We sure do. So I invite you to give us a call. 833-288-EWTN. EWTN Radio's YouTube channel, Facebook page, also available for you. While we're waiting for those calls to be screened, I want to share with you about some really neat stuff that's going on at Women of Grace. I sure do. Tonight begins our Lenten journey together, studying the book written by Father Wade Menezes called Overcoming the Evil Within. Our teacher is Sue Brinkman. You know her from Wacky Wednesday. She's a very good teacher. You are going to learn so much, but not only learn, you're going to be inspired. I think your heart is going to be broken open. I think it's going to be, a time of real revelation of you and revelation for you. So we really do want for you to join us. You can still join. Still taking those registrations. We have a lot of people joining us. I think that we might be at and slightly over 200 at this point in time. We're really eager for you to join us out there. Overcoming the Evil Within, book written by Father Wade Menezes, is going to carry us through this Lenten season. It's one of the ways in which you can really make a sacrificial offering to the Lord by opening yourself up. You know, we give things up, but we also want to include things that are healthy for us spiritually. This is a very good inclusion that will be healthy for you spiritually. So we invite you to join us for our book study beginning this evening, February 22nd, from 7:30 p.m. Eastern to 9 p.m. Eastern. Get right out there, register. We'll get you the information. You can join us. Want to let you also know that this weekend I am going to be in Nebraska, and I am going to be at Our Lady of Good Counsel Retreat House in Waverly, Nebraska, for a 3-day weekend retreat for men and women, or men or women. All of you. It starts Friday evening at 7 p.m. It ends Sunday with noon lunch. I'm so looking forward to this. You can join us in person, or you can join us through a live stream virtually. Both ways. We're excited about it. We want to see you there. I understand we're doing very well on registrations. As a matter of fact, I think that we're getting near full on what the retreat house can hold. I'm inviting you to get out there to our website, womenofgrace.com. Click on that particular offering under the events section. It's going to take you to a landing page. You can click right there to register. We're going to be talking about living the abundant life in today's world. We're going to be talking about various aspects of that and why it's absolutely essential to do so and why we should never lose heart. Right? So it's a beautiful way for us to come together. Also want to let you know that we are sponsoring a Lenten online retreat ourselves, March 27th. The theme is Man of Sorrows, Lord of Joy. All you need to do is to get out there to our website, womenofgrace.com. Take a look at the offerings that are there. All righty, we've got Linda with us in Wyoming, Michigan. Holy Family Radio is the way she's joining us. She is a first-time caller. And so it is, Linda, that we welcome you today. How are you?
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I just love your show. I listen to you every day. And I've always wanted to call, but I never have. And today when you said about the popes, I said, I have to share my John Paul II story. It's kind of a family thing because I went in 1979 when he came to Grant Park.
Okay, that was very shortly after he was installed as Holy Father.
Yes. Right. And I had gone with a church group, and we got there early, so we were right up front. And I thought, yes. But they didn't. I don't think they expected the crowds. And what they ended up doing is they roped off an area and put people in front of us. And I was just, it was, I was like, just had turned 28 years old. I was like, no way, they can't do this to us, We've been waiting all this time and blah, blah, blah. And But what ended up happening is our Holy Father came to our section to give us communion. Oh, my word. I don't even remember coming home. I was just like floating. I was just like, wow, such a blessing. But then in 1999, my daughter goes to Rome to see the same Pope in her 20s, just like her mama. But we always kid. I said, see, you had to go see Papa, but Papa came to Mama. So you traveled. Mama didn't have to. Papa came to me.
Oh, that's a beautiful story, Linda, and I can only imagine how meaningful that is to you now that you know that he is a canonized saint of the Church, and we had the special privilege of really getting to know him because he was so visible to us through all of those many years, and the fact that you got to see him when he was in his air quotes youth, right, early on in his pontificate, but also a very younger Holy Father, and we journeyed with him, and what lessons he taught us, as the Parkinson's disease began to take over more and more of his faculties. He taught us so much about perseverance, about long suffering. He became a witness to us on how to suffer well. What a beautiful, beautiful saint of the Church. What a beautiful man of God, and how privileged are we that we had him in our lifetime, and how privileged are you that you received Holy Communion through his own hands.
Oh,
what
I
a
know.
grace.
And I told Ron, I forgot to share this part with you, is when he came, he actually walked down our aisle to get up to the stage that they had set up for him.
Yes.
And I was like the woman. I reached out. I wanted to grab the hem of his garment, and I was able to touch it before the security guy, pushed my hand away. But I was like, I'm never going to wash my hand. I'm never going to wash my hand. But then when I received communion, it was like, I am not even worthy. What is going on here,
Oh, how beautiful, Linda. Oh, thank you for sharing that. It brings joy to all of our hearts to hear your story.
All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for all that you do.
Oh, may God be praised. Thank you, Linda. Bye-bye now. We've got Beth out there. She is on EWTN Radio's Facebook page. She says she grew up with St. John Paul II while he was Holy Father. She said her Aunt Olga got to shake hands with him in St. Peter's Square during a church pilgrimage of the Holy Lands in Europe in 1989. I, too, feel that His Holiness was detected by children, especially little babies, trying to fly from their mother's arms into his. I consider it a great blessing that he was canonized in my lifetime. Can you give Jerry in Kalamazoo, Michigan, a shout out to call us back? So that's my call screener. So, Jerry, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, would you please call us back? You're getting a special invitation from Ryan to give us a call back, right? She has something that she wants to share with us as well, and I'm eager to hear what Jerry has to say. But, Beth, I'll tell you, that is very beautiful, and it's true. Children are so pure. They understand. There is no guile in them. They are innocent, and so there is no sin that, they've received their baptism, right? And so there is no sin that is encumbering their capacity to recognize true holiness when they're with it. And generally speaking, they're very frank in what it is that they share with us. So, and that is beautiful, and it was wonderful to always see John Paul II hold up the babies. And many Holy Fathers had done that in the past, but not like he did. And it is very, very true that he had a special charism, special grace. It was with him from the beginning, and it remained and grew in him until he breathed his last. What a great grace that we do have. It's May. May is out there on Facebook, too. She says she saw St. John Paul in Scotland during his visit to Edinburgh in the early 1980s. She was in school then. She and her family were so excited to see him. God's love radiated from him. And didn't we catch that? Even if we never had the opportunity to see him in the flesh or to be close up to him, the fact of the matter is we could see that love radiating from him, couldn't we? Just through when we would see him on television. And we heard it. We heard it in the teachings that he gave to us, his general audience of teachings, that love and compassion of a father, so much present there. And we hear that in our Holy Fathers, don't we? And, I love that statement that Flannery O'Connor made when she was writing to Dr. Spivey, when she said that we as Catholics, we subscribe to the teachings of the church, whether they suit us or not. And why is that so hard? Why is obedience to the teaching of the church so hard? Well, I think that I know why. Because to be obedient, you have to be humble. You have to have that beautiful, beautiful virtue of humility. But here's the problem. By virtue of the stain of original sin, now removed through baptism, we still have a San Andreas fault that runs through the center of our soul. And it is concupiscence. And part of our concupiscence is the remnant, if you will, the residual effect of the sin of pride. And so we all have pride. And we don't want to say yes and submit to what someone else tells us is the right way to go. And I think that that's a really good thing to examine our consciences on, as we move through this Lenten season. How obedient am I? How obedient am I to God, given to us through Christ's presence with us through his church? And where do I have to beg God to give me humility that I might be obedient in a given direction? And take that to the sacrament. Make a good confession. And whatever it is that needs to be healed will be healed through those healing waters. And whatever needs to be corrected will be corrected through the grace that comes. And you'll have the reservoir of interior fortitude that you need to fight that good fight in that particular area every day. And it just might be the very means that God wants to use to make a saint out of you. Well, Jerry is back with us. Thank you, Jerry. Jerry, thank you. Holy Family Radio
You're
is the
welcome.
way. Jerry's with us. Jerry, here's your welcome bell. It's nice to have you.
Oh, thank you so much, Johnnette. This is a thrill. I wanted to, I'm sorry I hung up. I didn't realize I was supposed to stay on the line. But I wanted to tell another story about John Paul II. When I was in my 30s, he was coming to Chicago, and I lived near Chicago. And my girlfriend and I loaded up our children, and who were very young, and went to Mundelein, I think was the name of it, a seminary.
Yes.
And the Pope was going to stand on the roof. And so we gathered at this field, and we had a wonderful spot until the whole field filled up, with people. And the minute that he came out and he was standing there on the roof, we did the same thing. We jumped up and started waving scarves or blankets or whatever we had and yelling, "Viva la Papa!" And it was so exciting. I remembered it all my life.
Oh,
and,
Jerry.
That was a real blessing. So I'm so grateful I could see him.
You know what? I can hear it in your voice. I can hear how it still moves you so deeply, and that is such a beautiful thing. You were in the presence of a saint in the making at that moment, and
yes,
what a treat.
And he is, and I
Go
pray
ahead.
to him every day, Johnnette, because
Do you?
I just want him to pray for all of us and for our church and for my children and for all the people who were there in the presence of holiness.
Oh, Jerry.
It was a blessing.
You make my eyes fill with tears because
Thank you,
I just can hear how moved you are by this, and it's just beautiful. And, here's the thing. I was just thinking about the fact that, one of the words that John Paul II spoke frequently was couragio, right? He would say, "Be not afraid, couragio, courage." And I think of the great courage that it takes for a man to be Holy Father. And we see this demonstrated. I see it demonstrated in all of the popes that have populated my life, from Pius XII, though I didn't understand as a child when he was Holy Father, just how courageous he had been during the Second World War and is still being vilified falsely, which is such a shame because he did more for the Jewish people than anyone can really quite imagine. Great courage, putting himself in danger in many cases to hide Jews from the forces that were against them. I think of the great courage that we saw demonstrated in John the 23rd when he undertook that Second Vatican Council. And he wanted the windows of the church to be open. He prayed for the coming of the Holy Spirit as if in a new Pentecost. So important at that moment to look at some deeper issues. And again, misapplication of those great teachings that came forth from that particular council. And then you look at Pope Paul VI, who tried to righten the ship in terms of how those teachings were misinterpreted, especially by progressives, and very much so here in the United States. And the courageous stand that he took with Humane Generis, not Humane Generis, but Humane Vitae, tremendous witness to the faith. Standing with such opposition coming at him, but standing nonetheless, and never rescinding what he said. The stress and the strain that must have taken on that man. And then we had, John Paul I, whom we really didn't get to know very well, but he was known as the Smiling Pope. And then, of course, Pope John Paul II, St. John Paul the Great. An amazing, amazing teacher, amazing philosopher, just who we needed at that time. Again, in a love-hate relationship with the press. They couldn't stay away from him, but they didn't like a thing that he had to say. And then, of course, we had Benedict, who had stood beside John Paul II throughout his pontificate, shouldering that burden with him. Now Holy Father, again, misunderstood. And now we have Pope Francis, who continues to bring to us words that we need to hear, and how he is twisted and misinterpreted by the press. So it takes a great deal. And the fact that you pray to St. John Paul II every day, and we all need to be praying to our Holy Fathers who have gone before us and our saints. Also for those that, like Pope Paul VI, is not Pope Paul VI, but rather Pope Pius XII, whose process is really hung up at the present moment. He is a venerable. We need to be asking for, their intercession as we make our way through these very, very troublesome times. Jerry, thank you so much for your call.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. God bless
Thank
you.
you. God bless you, darling. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
Taryn is out there on YouTube. She says, I have been blessed to be in the presence of two popes, Pope Benedict XVI and Pope Francis, both grace-filled moments. St. Pope John Paul II, I believe, made the most positive effect on our young people. I think that that's very true, Taryn. I mean, he had a capacity with young people. He had a natural gift, and that came prior to his pontificate and followed him into his pontificate. And I think that he was just a man for the moment. And it's interesting because the Holy Spirit always gives us the man for the moment, even when we sometimes wonder about it. He is always giving us the man for the moment. We have Sandra with us. She is in White Lake, Michigan, Ave Maria Radio, first-time caller. And I think we can, we have 90 seconds, Sandra. Can you do it in 30?
Sure, I'm going to try. Okay, so I'm just a very short story I received from my uncle, which he was the survivor of Auschwitz. His name was Joseph Piwowarczyk, and so he was special. All the survivors had special visitation with Pope John Paul II, and all of them received a rosary given by the Pope. So the rosary went to my mom, and then my mom to give it to me. So
Sandra, how beautiful. What a beautiful story you share. And praise be to God that your uncle had that beautiful opportunity. And may God have mercy on all of us who need that mercy today. May it come by way of the intercession of all of our Holy Fathers. Sandra, thank you. It's been great being with all of you today. Get on out there, see what's going on in Women of Grace World, womenofgrace.com. We love you. Bye-bye now.
you forgiven